Commodore Srikant, do tell us how you're reading what's playing out right now in the Bab el Mandeb. Are these your worst fears coming to life right now?
Sandeep, as you may be aware, I was there posted in Nairobi in Kenya during the peak of the piracy in Gulf of Aden between 2008 to 12. And at that time, we thought that this was the worst that this region had seen, the almost daily attacks of piracy. But I think what is happening now seems like a really familiar script happening all over again, except that now technology seems to have gone up in leaps and bounds, and we can talk about that. And it's again happening at a major sort of global traffic junction where a lot of traffic goes. It tends to disrupt global traffic. This is happening in what is already an existing, say, conflict or fragile zone where lots of states lack capacities to handle existing issues, and then you are adding more to this. And this also plugs in with the rest of the issues that are happening on land. So this is a crazy cocktail of circumstances, and Houthis are simply upping the ante when it comes to the maritime theater. This, of course, tells us that there is no such thing as a quiet day in the maritime realm, whether it is illegal fishing, whether it's terrorism, whether it's piracy, whether it's people or gun smuggling or WMD proliferation. A lot of things are happening over the seas, on the seas. So this is in many ways many fears, coming true, and we were hoping that these lanes would be safe and free after the last major piracy threat was sort of put down, but it seems like something happening there again.
Commodore Aditya this side, I also wanted to ask you about the maritime security and how India is looking at it. A lot of these incidents have been reported over the years, but in the current times when there are two current wars that are underway, a lot of increased activity, and India also has had bilateral ties, maritime ties with a lot of countries. We've had, of course, the Quad that we speak about often, but how invested is India in protecting its maritime borders and, of course, strengthening, all across the sea routes in that region?
No, of course, India is very, very interested, very invested, and in some ways we're obliged to protect our own trade, and a whole lot of that trade, comes from foreign shipping vessels, So we are bound to protect, and these are our areas of interest, primary areas of interest, as enunciated in our own maritime strategy documents. So in the maritime world, we say that our neighbors are these seas and these choke points and access points. The geography of Indian Ocean is such that this is a critical access point, an entry and exit point. So we are very much invested here. Now, we have had partnerships with other nations, and you mentioned some of them. Recently, as you know, we also taken steps to become a member of the Combined Maritime Force. And then during the last edition, the last time when piracy happened in Gulf of Aden, while we were not part of any coalition, we took an active part in counter piracy. And in fact, at one point of time, we spotted the highest number of attacks. We had the highest number of pirates in our custody. So I think India plays a very, very important role, whether in countering piracy or countering other threats to maritime order in this region. And I think we are monitoring this very, very closely. At this point of time, the Houthis sort of seem to make it that it is a battle against Israel and Americas, and they're not targeting anyone else. But I'm sure that space is being monitored very, very closely, because at the end of the day, this disrupts global traffic. We must also remember one more thing, that India has a high proportion of seafarers. So when any ship is hijacked, and it could belong to any country registered anywhere, is likely to have Indian seafarers, and therefore the safety of Indians is also important to Indian authorities. I think in all ways, from trade, commerce, from military viewpoint, and from human aspects. India would be very, very keenly watching this and kind of discussing what should be the next steps it should be taking in if this sort of trend increases and there are more such instances.
So, Commodore Srikant, because our sea lanes of communication are directly impacted by what's going on, do you see the Indian Navy actually stepping forward and say joining a coalition task force to enforce, the safety of the slocks, or join the American ships who have been shooting down these Houthi missiles?
You see, I think the word coalition has been, at least in the past, a bit of anathema for the Indian policymakers. So I don't know whether, in terms of nomenclature, they will look at it. But we have taken steps, as we pointed out, moving from being associate member now to moving towards full membership of CMF. The CMF, as you are aware, has two task forces, 151 for counter piracy and 153 for the Gulf of Aden Red Sea activities. So would it seek for India to join, and would India join? That's a $1 million question. I do know and think, of course, that India in the past, even when not part of the coalition forces, did lots of active operational coordination at sea, and that's natural for navies to do. Often when you take these counter piracy activities, you could involve the boat of one navy, the helicopter of another, guidance by a third one, and so on and so forth. So operational coordination and interactions at sea between navies are quite common, and I see that India would probably, coordinate much more on a whole lot of operational issues to counter this if it came to that. Whether it would be in form of having escort ships singly or with other countries, escorting our own trade, our own ships, or doing that in form of informal partnerships with others. Last time we had done an international corridor, which we had designated, whether we would designate some such safe corridors where we escort ships, or we will do a more active partnership with the Americans in terms of being part of some entity, whether that will take the name of a coalition or it will be called another coordinated task force or something like that, will have to be seen. But I think this has to be seen as a form of a danger or threat, not just to the Americans or the Israelis, but to the traffic as a whole, and in some way, at some point of time, possibly to Indian interests too.
Right, and taking up from one of your statements where you spoke of the technology and that the Houthis have deployed, and you've headed the Maritime Warfare Center. How much of a surprise was it for you when the Houthis started assaulting ships with helicopters and firing cruise missiles and ballistic missiles at Wash? I mean, is this the future of warfare or maritime warfare?
Look, I mean, now we know for long that Houthis have possessed a range of capabilities. After all, when they've been fighting their own government and the Saudi-backed forces, they have shown, I mean, there have been a barrage of missiles they have used. They've used sophisticated equipment, and they have improvised and innovated. So yes, to some extent, one can say that one might have expected the Houthis to have done this at sea too. Now, very obviously, they're getting support from a lot of entities, and we know who they are. But even so, the use of missiles, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, the use of helicopter coming in, I mean, that shows a high level of sophistication, because you're looking at flight envelopes, you're looking at correct way to land. You're also looking at intelligence information. I mean, yes, a lot of information about merchant ships movements are available through agencies and on the internet, but you need a certain amount of intelligence to sort of determine which ship, who is the owner, what is the cargo, and stuff like that. So obviously, Houthis have been very, very remarkable in upping the ante, so to say. I mean, this is very kind of dark humor, but in retrospect, the piracy in Gulf of Aden just about 10 or 15 years ago, the use of RPGs and ladders and fast boats now seems such an anachronism when you look at missiles and helicopters coming into land. So is this the future of maritime warfare at sea? Possibly so, and that raises lots of questions, because you often have now Houthis can be, you can either call them state actors, non-state actors, something in between. How do you wage war? I mean, who do you respond to if such a thing happens? Do you do it on an episodic case-to-case basis? If you have to escalate, who do you escalate against? Who do you attack? How do you handle a whole lot of these issues? It creates problems, and it also shows that that even small entities supported by other countries can bring in tremendous sophistication, drones, precision guided missiles, helicopters, and a whole lot of that into warfare. The third point is it can also give a fillip to other forms of terrorism, piracy. I mean, after all, let's remember that the whole area there, you got the Al Shabaab, you got the other elements in Somalia. So possibly this can serve as an encouragement to many or all of them to start off, join the melee, so to say, and create these disruptions and take advantage of the differences between states when they respond to such situations. So I guess we have to wait and watch this situation very carefully. But some of the signs coming from there, including today morning's attack, clearly worrisome.
News 9 Plus. Download now.